There's a company that was headquartered in a mid-sized Colombian city that made $420 million in a week. Not a good week, every week. So much cash came in that the accounting department's most famous line item was rubber bands. $2,500 a month just to bundle the bills. And even bundled, there was too much of it to protect. Every year, roughly $2 billion rotted in warehouses and farm fields, eaten by rats and ruined by rain, and the company wrote it off like spilled inventory. It was run by a farmer's son who never finished his education, a man who lost more money to rodents than most American corporations earned in profit. A kid from Rio Negro whose actual dream was the presidency of Colombia. Instead, he built an empire that investigators say supplied 80% of the world's cocaine. And here's the part the TV shows leave out. When the government finally cornered him, he agreed to go to prison on one condition, that he build the prison himself. The state said yes, and then asked his permission to come inside. His cash pile was so deep he had already offered, in writing, to pay off his country's entire $10 billion national debt. The prisoner was the landlord, and the government was the guest. I am not going to tell you his name yet. That empire is number one on this list, and we will come back to it. Because to understand how a business like that gets built, you have to meet the other 9 first. Armies, brotherhoods, cartels run like boardrooms, and a crime syndicate that publishes its own company newsletter, not street gangs. Multinational corporations mostly, that turned banned products into Fortune 500 revenue and turned entire countries into cost centers. So let's talk about 10 drug empires that out-earned Fortune 500 companies. And we start on the other side of the world with a company magazine that runs a fishing column. Number 10, the Yamaguchi-gumi, Kobe, Japan. Everyone else on this list spent fortunes staying hidden, and this one has a street address. In 2014, Fortune magazine did something strange. It ranked the world's biggest criminal organizations by revenue, like a shadow Fortune 500. Sitting on that list was a Japanese syndicate founded in 1915 as a dock workers union, now pulling in an estimated $6.6 billion a year, enough revenue to qualify for the actual Fortune 500, ahead of household American brands. And it operates like it knows that. The Yamaguchi-gumi runs out of office buildings. Members carry business cards. Here's what set them apart. In 2013, the organization launched an 8-page internal newsletter for full members, with articles on the group's traditions, an editorial written by the boss, and a column about fishing. A company magazine for gangsters. When the 1995 earthquake flattened Kobe and the government's response stalled, the syndicate ran its own disaster relief, serving hot meals to victims twice a day while officials were still holding meetings. Today, it is still Japan's largest Yakuza organization, shrinking, splintering, and completely legal to belong to. Number 9, Amado Carrillo Fuentes, Ciudad Juarez, Mexico. Most of the empires on this list ran on trucks and tunnels. This one ran an airline. Amado came up under his uncle, Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo, one of the old Guadalajara bosses, then took over the Juarez cartel the direct way by having his own boss, Rafael Aguilar Guajardo, killed. What he built after that broke the scale. Amado assembled a private fleet of more than 24 Boeing 727 airliners and flew Colombian cocaine north by the plane load, moving 4 times more product into the United States than any trafficker on earth. They called him El Señor de los Cielos, the Lord of the Skies. The DEA pegged his fortune at $25 billion, which made a drug smuggler from a Sinaloan village one of the richest men alive. But here's the detail that defined him. The money couldn't buy him a face nobody knew. In July 1997, hunted by 2 governments, he checked into a Mexico City clinic under a false name for 8 hours of plastic surgery to become someone else, and died on the table. 4 months later, 2 of his surgeons were found sealed in steel drums filled with concrete. Number 8, the Camorra. Naples, Italy. While Japan's empire kept the peace to protect the money, Naples burned for it. Fortune's shadow ranking put the Camorra's revenue at $4.9 billion a year, spread across dozens of feuding clans, and no place showed what that money cost, like the housing projects of Scampia and Secondigliano. Under boss Paolo De Lauro, a CEO in a tracksuit, those towers became the largest open-air drug market in Europe. The operation ran on corporate discipline. Dealer shifts, lookout rotations, even welfare payments to the families of jailed members. One single block was moving 300,000 euros of product a day. Then there's the part the cameras found. When De Lauro's empire split in 2004, the war for those towers left more than 100 people dead in the streets. A feud so brutal it produced Roberto Saviano's book, Camorra, and put its author under police protection for life. The clans are still there, still fragmented, still fighting over the same concrete. Number 7. The Ndrangheta, Calabria, Italy. Every empire so far wanted to be seen. This one spent a century making sure you never heard of it. Fortune listed the Calabrian syndicate at a conservative $4.5 billion a year. Italian investigators believe the real drug figure runs far higher. One estimate put the organization's income at roughly 3% of Italy's entire economy. The reason sits on the Calabrian coast. Investigators estimate that 80% of the cocaine entering Europe moves through the port of Gioia Tauro. 3.6 million shipping containers a year are watched by a security detail of about 25 police officers. The Ndrangheta owns that choke point, which makes it the wholesaler for an entire continent. But here's why the name never comes up. The organization is built from more than 100 family clans that recruit by blood and marriage, so there is almost no one to flip. Sons don't testify against fathers. It has sales on 4 continents. No celebrity boss and no movie. It has never been dismantled. That is the entire strategy. Number 6. The Guadalajara cartel. Guadalajara, Mexico. 3 of the biggest empires on this list would not exist without this one. It's the parent company that spun them off. In the early 1980s, Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, Rafael Caro Quintero, and Ernesto Fonseca Carrillo did something no Mexican trafficker had done. They unified nearly every smuggling route into the United States under one roof, carved the border into territories called plazas, and taxed everything that crossed. Their timing was perfect. When American pressure shut down the Caribbean routes, the Colombians needed a new road north, and Guadalajara owned the road. Cocaine, marijuana, protection, all of it flowed through one organization with police and officials on the payroll. Quick thing before the top 5. If you're finding this worth your time, a subscribe genuinely helps keep these coming, and it costs you nothing. That's the whole ask. Now, in February 1985, the company made the worst decision in the history of the drug trade. After DEA agent Enrique Kiki Camarena got too close, his work had already cost the cartel a multi-billion-dollar plantation. Corrupt police officers grabbed him in broad daylight near the American consulate in Guadalajara. He was held, interrogated, and killed. He was 37, a husband, a father of 3. The murder triggered Operation Leyenda, the largest homicide investigation the DEA has ever run, and it did not stop for decades. Fonseca and Caro Quintero fell first. Felix Gallardo was taken in 1989, but before the walls closed, the bosses divided the map among their lieutenants, and those pieces became the Tijuana, Juarez, and Sinaloa cartels. 40 years later, the United States is still prosecuting the men who ran it. Number 5. Khun Sa, Shan State, Burma. Most names on this list end in a cell or a grave. His ends in a villa. In the mountains of the Golden Triangle, a half-Chinese, half-Shan warlord named Khun Sa built a private state on opium. His Hmong Thai army fielded roughly 20,000 soldiers, complete with uniforms, hospitals, satellite dishes, and anti-aircraft guns. The product that army protected reached across the Pacific. At his peak, American drug officials estimated that Khun Sa's organization supplied 60% of the heroin on United States streets, a monopoly no cartel on this list ever matched. A New York grand jury indicted him. Washington put a bounty of $2 million on his head. But here's the twist that makes his story unlike any other. Khun Sa kept writing to the American government, offering to sell them his entire opium crop, and he argued that if they bought the harvest, the heroin trade would die overnight. They refused every time. So in 1996, he surrendered instead, not to the Americans, but to Burma's generals, who took over his business interests, refused every extradition request, and set him up in a villa in Rangoon. He died there in 2007, a free man, having never spent a day in an American courtroom. Number 4. The Solntsevskaya Bratva, Moscow, Russia. Almost everything before this point has been broken up, locked up, or buried. This one is still open for business. When Fortune ranked the world's criminal earners, the number at the very top belonged to the Solntsevskaya Brotherhood. $8.5 billion a year, more than any cartel, mafia, or syndicate on the planet. The money comes largely from heroin flowing out of Afghanistan into a country that consumes around 12% of the world's supply with 0.5% of its population, and the structure is built to survive anything. According to Oxford criminologist Federico Varese, the Bratva runs as 10 separate brigades operating independently, with the pooled money overseen by a 12-man council that meets around the world, and it disguises its gatherings as festive occasions, weddings, parties, board meetings with cake. There is no headquarters to raid, no boss to arrest, no name on a door. No leader has ever stood trial for running it, and officially, it barely exists. Number 3. The Sinaloa cartel, Culiacan, Mexico. If you want to see what one of these empires looks like from the customer's end, look at Chicago. Fortune put Sinaloa's revenue at $3 billion a year, built on a 60% share of the drugs moving through Mexico. And in 2009, Forbes did something the business press had never done. It put the cartel's boss, Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, on his billionaire list, ranked alongside bankers and tech founders at an even $1 billion. Chicago felt the weight of that balance sheet from 2,000 miles away. Federal agents concluded that Sinaloa supplied the bulk of the narcotics sold in the city and used it as a distribution hub for the entire country. And here's the part that made Chicago's decision for them. In February 2013, the Chicago Crime Commission named El Chapo the city's public enemy #1, the first man to hold that title since it was invented in 1930 for Al Capone. The DEA's top agent in Chicago said Capone wouldn't have lasted around against him. Guzman had never even been known to set foot in the city. He's in a Colorado supermax now, serving life, and the cartel kept moving product without him. Number 2. The Cali cartel, Cali, Colombia. Most of these empires ran on fear. This one ran on filing cabinets. While the world hunted the man at the top of this list, the Rodriguez Orejuela brothers, Gilberto, the chess player, and Miguel, the master, quietly took over what he lost. By the early 1990s, American officials estimated the Cali cartel controlled 80 to 90% of the world's cocaine and grossed as much as $7 billion a year, and it did it without car bombs. It did it with information. The cartel put taxi drivers, phone company workers, and office clerks on the payroll across the city until DEA agents started calling the network the Cali KGB, a machine that could track any investigator, hear any call. Its legitimate holdings included a national drugstore chain with hundreds of locations. Its cocaine crossed borders inside shipments of frozen broccoli. Here's what set them apart. When the brothers wanted protection, they didn't threaten the government, they bought one. Colombian investigations found the cartel pumped roughly $6 million into the 1994 campaign of Ernesto Samper, who won the presidency. Arrested in 1995, the brothers ran the business from their cells for years, the same trick the man at #1 perfected, until extradition finally landed them in American prisons, where both died. And #1 is the Medellin cartel, Pablo Escobar, Medellin, Colombia, the company that lost $2 billion a year to rats and didn't care. Start where he started, because it's the last place you'd expect. Escobar was born in Rio Negro in 1949, the son of a farmer and a school teacher, and he hustled from the beginning. Fake diplomas, smuggled stereo equipment, even stolen gravestones sanded down and resold. The men who worked for him called him El Patron, the boss. He didn't invent cocaine smuggling, he industrialized it. By the mid-1980s, the cartel was earning that $420 million a week, nearly $22 billion a year, revenue that would have placed a legal company among the largest corporations in America. Do the math on what that bought. 80% of the world's cocaine supply, 15 tons a day into the United States through Miami, New York, and Los Angeles. Forbes put Escobar on its billionaire list 7 years in a row, and his brother Roberto, the cartel's accountant, kept ordering the rubber bands. And here's the part that separates Medellin from everyone else on this list. The reason the story outlasts them all. In June 1991, on the same day Colombia's assembly voted to ban extradition, Escobar surrendered. His condition, he would design and build his own prison. The government agreed. LA Catedral sat on a hillside above Medellin with a soccer field, a nightclub, a jacuzzi, and a waterfall guarded by men Escobar chose himself. He hosted the Colombian national soccer team on his pitch. He held wedding receptions in the disco. He ran the entire empire from his cell by phone and fax, a full year of state-supervised freedom, until he tortured 2 of his own men inside the prison walls. The government finally moved to transfer him, and he simply walked out. Whether you call that place a prison or a fortress, no other criminal enterprise in history made a government its tenant. Then it ended the way it had to. 16 months on the run, a fortune he couldn't touch, at one point burning $2 million in cash just to keep his daughter warm. And on December 2nd, 1993, one day after his 44th birthday, Escobar was killed on a Medellin rooftop. The man had beaten extradition treaties, 2 governments, and a decade of manhunts. And in the end, the empire that couldn't count its own money died with him on a tile roof. But here's the ending you don't get with the others. Hacienda Naples, the 7,000-acre estate where he parked his private zoo, wasn't bulldozed. Today, it's a theme park. School kids take field trips there. Families line up for the water slides. And the 4 hippos he smuggled in for that zoo never left. They bred. Right now, their descendants are still multiplying in the rivers of Colombia, the last living assets of a $22 billion company, and the one thing on its books the government has never managed to seize.